Dollar yen, do you think it could go past? It could even reach 8? I mean, will China actually allow that to happen?
Well, China is facing very large amount of capital outflows and a diminishing pool of reserves to control the currency. But the Chinese approach right now seems to be to control the outflows by essentially shutting down the capital account. This is still very much a controlled currency that is managed versus a basket of currencies. Chinese authorities can and will use regulations to restrict the amount of dollar outflows. So I think a forecast of 8 would be far-fetched. We are fairly bullish on the US dollar. We have a forecast of around 740, which I think really balances the risks of dollar appreciation with Chinese control. Now, I think one key point about this whole China situation is how the trade and geopolitical situation evolves vis-a-vis the US, because that is very difficult to predict. And what happens on that front can really change the currency outlook as well.
Let's talk more about that, because we have a new president coming on in the US, I think in about 16 days. There's going to be a lot of talk about trade protectionism. Of course, there's going to be risks in the trade sector. How is this going to pan out as far as trade is concerned, and what is China likely to do?
Sure. What seems realistic is some sort of US changes to taxes, which will essentially be a border tax, which will disincentivize corporates from producing in China and exporting back to the US. That obviously is negative for China, but those decisions are likely to be challenged in the WTO by the Chinese as well, because it's not clear whether the US can do that and remain part of the WTO. On the other hand, there is also the risk of a much broader issue with regards to geopolitics between US and China as well. So not just a trade spat, but more a geopolitical issue. And that, I think, for that, there's lots of risks. But at the same time, there's also lots of reason for sanity to prevail as well. As Chinese authorities have said, it is in no one's interest really to create a big spat between the US and the Chinese. And same thing in the trade side as well. I think China and US is not the same as China, US and Mexico. The relationship is not as asymmetric.